Isabella Parker stared at her phone in horror, her heart pounding against her ribs. What was supposed to be a private moment shared with her closest friends had just become a very public mistake. The ultrasound image of her unborn child, the tiny bean-shaped miracle growing inside her, had been posted to her professional social media account instead of her personal one. It was a simple error with potentially catastrophic consequences. As the social media coordinator for Horizon Innovations, one of Boston's fastest-growing tech companies, Isabella's professional account was followed not only by industry contacts, but by the entire executive team, including the notoriously demanding CEO, Jackson Bennett. Oh my God, Isabella muttered, fingers trembling as she frantically tried to delete the post. But the dreaded notification had already appeared. Jackson Bennett and 47 others liked your post. The CEO had seen it. The CEO, who had never so much as acknowledged her existence in the 2 years she'd worked for the company, had just liked a picture of her ultrasound. The same CEO who was infamous for his rigid professionalism and who had once fired an employee for bringing a child to the office during a snowstorm. Isabella collapsed onto her small apartment's worn couch, the morning sickness that had plagued her for weeks suddenly intensifying. At 29, this wasn't how she'd imagined her life would unfold. 6 months ago, she had been engaged to Mark, planning a wedding and dreaming of their future together. Then came the surprise pregnancy, followed by Mark's even more surprising confession that he wasn't ready for fatherhood, or marriage for that matter. He had walked away, leaving Isabella alone with mounting bills, morning sickness, and a job that barely covered her rent. "What am I going to do now?" she whispered to the empty room. Horizon had a strict professional image, and while they hadn't explicitly said they would fire a pregnant single woman, Isabella had witnessed enough sidelong glances at the one mother in her department to know that parenthood wasn't considered compatible with the company's demanding work culture. Her phone buzzed with an incoming email, and Isabella felt a wave of dizziness wash over her as she read the sender's name, Jackson Bennett. The subject line was short and terrifying. "See me, my office, 10 a.m. Isabella glanced at the clock, 8:47 a.m. She had just over an hour before she had to face the man who held her financial future in his hands. With shaking legs, she forced herself into the shower, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Maybe he just wanted to offer congratulations. Maybe pigs would fly past her window. She arrived at the gleaming glass headquarters of Horizon Innovations with 15 minutes to spare, using the time to touch up her makeup and smooth her dark hair. The executive floor was a place she rarely visited, a hushed realm of polished wood and sleek design that contrasted sharply with the chaotic, colorful marketing department 10 floors below. "Mr. Bennett is ready for you," his assistant announced. Barely looking up from her computer, Isabella took a deep breath and stepped into the corner office, immediately struck by the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Boston Harbor. Jackson Bennett stood with his back to her, a tall silhouette against the bright morning light. At 38, he had built Horizon from a startup to a company valued at billions, earning a reputation as both a visionary and a ruthless perfectionist. "Ms. Parker," he said, turning to face her. His expression was unreadable, blue eyes coolly assessing. "Please sit down." Isabella lowered herself into a chair that probably cost more than her monthly rent, clutching her portfolio like a shield. "Mr. Bennett, about the post this morning, I cancelled my 10 a.m. meeting with the board," he interrupted, sitting down behind his immaculate desk. "It was an important meeting, quarterly projections." Isabella's throat went dry. "I'm very sorry, sir. It was completely unprofessional. I meant to post that to my personal account, and I deleted it as soon as I realized the mistake. It won't happen again." Bennett studied her silently for a moment. "How far along are you?" The question caught her off guard. 16 weeks, sir." He nodded slowly. "And the father?" Isabella stiffened. This was crossing a line, even for the CEO. "Not in the picture, sir, but I assure you, my personal situation won't affect my work performance." Something flickered across Bennett's face, an emotion Isabella couldn't identify before his professional mask slipped back into place. "That wasn't my concern. I noticed you've been taking a lot of sick days recently." "Morning sickness," she admitted, "but it's improving. I haven't missed any deadlines." "And your doctor? Everything is progressing normally?" The strangeness of this conversation was making Isabella increasingly nervous. Why would Jackson Bennett care about her pregnancy? Was he building a case for letting her go? Yes, everything's fine, she answered cautiously. Mr. Bennett, if you're concerned about my ability to perform my duties— I'm not, he said abruptly. That's not why I called you here. He stood and turned back to the window, hands clasped behind his back. Ms. Parker, I don't make a habit of discussing my personal life with employees, but in this case I'm making an exception. Isabella waited, completely baffled. 5 years ago, Bennett continued, his voice oddly distant, my wife and I were expecting our first child. There were complications. We lost the baby at 20 weeks. 6 months later, I lost my wife to cancer she'd been hiding because she didn't want to stress me during the pregnancy. Isabella felt a cold shock run through her. Mr. Bennett, I'm so sorry. When I saw your post this morning, he continued as if she hadn't spoken, it affected me. More than I expected. He turned back to face her, his composure firmly back in place. You're going through this alone, from what I understand. She nodded, unsure where this was heading. That changes as of today, he said decisively. Horizon Innovations will be implementing a new parental support program, effective immediately. Full medical coverage, flexible scheduling, and 12 weeks of paid leave. We should have done this years ago. Isabella stared at him in disbelief. Sir, additionally, Bennett continued, returning to his seat, I'd like to offer you a new position. Our community outreach program needs restructuring, and I think your perspective would be valuable. It comes with a 30% salary increase and the option to work remotely 3 days a week. Tears welled in Isabella's eyes before she could stop them. Mr. Bennett, I don't know what to say. Something that might have been a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. You can start by calling me Jackson, and you can say yes. As Isabella left the office 20 minutes later, head spinning with the unexpected turn of events, she couldn't have imagined that this was just the beginning, that the ultrasound accidentally shared would set in motion events that would change not only her life, but the culture of Horizon Innovations itself. Nor could she have guessed that the stoic CEO with the sad eyes would soon become much more than just her boss. 2 months had passed since Isabella's life-altering meeting with Jackson Bennett. Spring had blossomed into early summer, and her small office on the 14th floor, a significant upgrade from her previous cubicle, offered a view of the Charles River dotted with sailboats. The promotion to Community Outreach Director had been announced company-wide, resulting in mixed reactions. Some colleagues offered genuine congratulations, while others whispered about favoritism and speculated about her relationship with the CEO. They think I slept my way into this office, Isabella confided to her best friend Natalie during their weekly lunch at a cafe near Horizon's headquarters. At 22 weeks pregnant, Isabella's condition was now impossible to hide, her fitted maternity dress accentuating her growing bump. Natalie rolled her eyes, stabbing at her salad. Let them talk. We both know you're killing it in this role. That homeless shelter partnership you set up is getting coverage in the Boston Globe next week. Isabella smiled, though the whispers still bothered her. What bothered her more, however, was her growing fascination with Jackson Bennett. Their weekly meetings to discuss outreach initiatives had revealed a man vastly different from his cold public persona. Behind closed doors, he was thoughtful, occasionally funny, and surprisingly knowledgeable about prenatal health, a fact he attributed to research. He asked about my iron levels yesterday, Isabella said, shaking her head in bewilderment. Who does that? And then he had his assistant deliver a month's supply of some fancy prenatal vitamins his cousin apparently developed. They taste like actual fruit instead of fish oil and metal. Sounds like someone has a crush, Natalie teased, wiggling her eyebrows. Don't be ridiculous, Isabella protested, feeling her cheeks warm. He feels responsible for me or something. It's probably guilt or misplaced grief over his wife and baby. Natalie's expression softened. Have you considered that maybe it's neither? Maybe he just likes you, Izzy. Isabella dismissed the idea with a wave of her hand. He's Jackson Bennett. He dates supermodels and goes to charity galas with actresses. I'm his pregnant employee with swollen ankles and heartburn. All I'm saying is, I've never heard of him personally delivering vitamins to any other employee, Natalie pointed out. Back at the office, Isabella tried to push the conversation from her mind as she prepared for her presentation to the executive board. Jackson had given her 10 minutes to pitch 3 new community initiatives, and she was determined to prove she deserved her position. She was reviewing her notes when a knock at her door revealed Jackson himself, looking uncharacteristically casual in shirt sleeves with his tie loosened. "Got a minute?" he asked, closing the door behind him. Isabella nodded, suddenly self-conscious about the prenatal yoga stretches she'd been doing between meetings. Her back had been killing her all day. "I wanted to check if you were ready for tomorrow," he said, leaning against her bookshelf. "The board can be intimidating." "I think so," she replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "Though I'm a little nervous about facing Mr. Wilkins. I've heard he's not a fan of the expanded benefits package." "Don't worry about Wilkins," Jackson said dismissively. "He'll come around or he'll find himself outvoted. This company is changing for the better and he needs to adapt." He paused, studying her with concern. "You look uncomfortable. Back pain?" Isabella blinked in surprise. "How did you know?" "My sister had the same issue during her second trimester." He hesitated before adding, "There's a wellness room on this floor with a massage chair. Most people don't know about it. The access code is 5529. These moments of unexpected thoughtfulness kept catching Isabella off guard. "Thank you. I might check it out after I finish these revisions." Jackson nodded, then seemed to struggle with what to say next. "There's something else I wanted to discuss with you." "It's somewhat personal." Isabella's heart skipped a beat. "Oh? The Children's Hospital Benefit Gala is this Saturday," he began, uncharacteristically hesitant. "As a major donor, Horizon should have representation there. Normally I'd go alone, but since we're launching the Pediatric Care Initiative next month, I thought it might be beneficial to have our community outreach director present as well." Isabella stared at him. "Are you asking me to attend the gala with you?" "In a professional capacity," he clarified quickly. "Of course, if you're not feeling up to it—" "No, I'd be happy to go," she interrupted, mind racing. A gala meant a formal dress, which meant shopping for formal maternity wear, which meant— "Excellent," Jackson said, interrupting her mental spiral. "My driver will pick you up at 7. Text my personal number your address." He handed her a business card with a number handwritten on the back. After he left, Isabella sat in stunned silence before calling Natalie in a panic. "I need a gown that makes me look like a sophisticated business professional and not a pregnant penguin, and I have exactly 3 days to find it." Saturday evening arrived with alarming speed. Isabella had settled on a floor-length navy gown with subtle silver embellishments that somehow managed to look both professional and elegant. She was putting the finishing touches on her makeup when her phone buzzed with a text from Jackson. "Car arriving in 10 minutes. No rush." When the sleek black car pulled up to her modest apartment building, Isabella was surprised to see Jackson step out to open the door for her. He looked devastatingly handsome in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his usual stern expression softened by what almost looked like nervousness. "You look beautiful," he said simply as he helped her into the car. The gala was held at the historic Fairmont Copley Plaza, its grand ballroom transformed into a glittering wonderland of lights and flowers. As they entered together, Isabella became acutely aware of curious glances and whispered conversations. Jackson Bennett rarely attended these functions with a date, and certainly never with a visibly pregnant woman. "Ignore them," Jackson murmured, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. "Half the people here owe their success to Horizon's investments. They won't dare say anything to your face." The evening progressed more pleasantly than Isabella had anticipated. Jackson introduced her to Boston's elite, with obvious pride in her work, never once treating her as anything less than a valued colleague. She found herself enjoying his company, laughing at his surprisingly sharp observations about the other guests. "Jackson Bennett laughing. The world must be ending," came a smooth feminine voice from behind them. Isabella turned to see a strikingly beautiful woman in a red dress regarding them with amusement. Jackson's posture immediately stiffened. "Vanessa," he acknowledged coolly. "I didn't realize you were in Boston." "Just flew in yesterday," the woman replied, her gaze shifting to Isabella with undisguised curiosity. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" "Isabella Parker, our Director of Community Outreach," Jackson said formally. "Isabella, this is Vanessa Caldwell, my ex-wife's sister." Isabella nearly choked on her sparkling water. "Ex-wife? I thought—" She stopped herself too late, realizing her mistake. Vanessa's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "You thought what, exactly?" "I apologize," Isabella stammered. "I was under the impression that Mr. Bennett's wife had passed away." A strange silence fell between them. Vanessa looked genuinely confused, while Jackson's expression had turned to stone. "Catherine died 5 years ago," Vanessa said slowly. "But they had been divorced for nearly a year before her diagnosis." She glanced between them. "You didn't know?" "It never came up," Jackson said tersely. "If you'll excuse us, Vanessa." He guided Isabella away, his hand tense against her back. They found a quiet corner near an elaborate ice sculpture, and Jackson ran a hand through his hair in a rare display of agitation. "I owe you an explanation," he said quietly. "You don't owe me anything," Isabella replied, though questions were burning in her mind. Jackson looked directly into her eyes. "Yes, I do. I told you about losing my wife and baby, but I left out important details. Catherine and I were divorced before she died. The pregnancy had been an attempt to save a marriage that was already failing. When we lost the baby," he paused, pain evident in his features. "She shut me out completely. The divorce was her idea, but I didn't fight it. Then came her diagnosis, and by the time I found out, it was too late." Isabella reached out impulsively, placing her hand over his. "I'm so sorry, Jackson. The guilt has been," he hesitated, "overwhelming. I should have been there for her, even after the divorce. Instead, I buried myself in work. When I saw your ultrasound that day, it brought everything back. But it also made me realize how much I've cut myself off from any real human connection these past 5 years." Their eyes met, and Isabella felt something shift between them, something that went far beyond professional boundaries. Before she could process this new development, a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen, causing her to gasp and clutch her belly. "Isabella." Jackson's voice was sharp with alarm. "I'm fine," she insisted, though the pain had been intense. "Probably just Braxton Hicks contractions. The doctor mentioned they might start around this time." Jackson didn't look convinced. "We're leaving now." Despite her protests, he escorted her swiftly from the ballroom, his concern evident in every tense line of his body. As they waited for the car, Isabella experienced another sharp pain, this one accompanied by a frightening wetness. She looked down in horror to see blood staining the beautiful navy gown. "Jackson," she whispered, terror gripping her heart. "Something's wrong with the baby." The next hours passed in a blur of bright lights, urgent voices, and overwhelming fear. Jackson had carried Isabella to the car, barking instructions to his driver to take them to Massachusetts General Hospital instead of the smaller facility that was closer. During the frantic drive, he had held her hand so tightly it almost hurt, his usually composed face a mask of barely controlled panic, as he made calls ensuring a specialist would be waiting for them upon arrival. "Stay with me," he kept saying, though whether to Isabella or to her unborn child she wasn't sure. By the time they reached the emergency room, Isabella's navy gown was ruined, and the contractions were coming with alarming regularity. A team of medical professionals whisked her away, leaving Jackson in the waiting area, still in his tuxedo, looking utterly lost for perhaps the first time in his professional life. Inside the examination room, Dr. Lisa Mercer, the top maternal fetal medicine specialist in Boston, delivered the news with calm efficiency. "You're experiencing placental abruption, Miss Parker. The placenta has partially separated from the uterine wall." "My baby?" Isabella asked, her voice small and terrified. "Your baby's heartbeat is stable for now, but we need to monitor you both very carefully. This is a serious condition that could potentially lead to premature delivery." The next 24 hours would be critical. Isabella was admitted immediately, hooked up to monitors that tracked both her vitals and the baby's. The bleeding had slowed but hadn't stopped entirely, and each passing hour brought both relief and renewed anxiety. Jackson never left the hospital. He cancelled meetings, rescheduled calls, and worked remotely from a chair beside Isabella's bed. When he thought she was sleeping, she caught him staring at the fetal monitor with an intensity that made her heart ache. This wasn't just professional concern or even friendship. There was something deeper driving his vigilance. On the second morning, while a nurse checked Isabella's vital signs, Jackson stepped out to take an important call. The nurse, an older woman named Ruth, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, gave Isabella a knowing look. "That man hasn't left your side for more than 5 minutes at a stretch," she remarked. Nearly bit the head off the administrator, who suggested he might be more comfortable waiting at home. Isabella felt a blush creep up her cheeks. He's my boss. He feels responsible. Ruth made a skeptical sound. I've been working here for 30 years, honey. I've seen feels responsible before, and that ain't it. She adjusted the IV line and added more gently, the way he looks at that monitor when the baby's heartbeat speeds up, that's not a boss watching an employee's medical crisis. That's a man with his heart on the line. After Ruth left, Isabella lay in the quiet room, listening to the steady beep of the machines and contemplating the nurse's words. Was it possible that Jackson felt something beyond obligation or guilt? And if he did, what did that mean for her? For them? The questions circled in her mind until exhaustion pulled her into a restless sleep. She woke to find Jackson back in his chair, his jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up, stubble darkening his jaw as he frowned at his laptop. He looked up immediately when she stirred, setting the computer aside. "How are you feeling?" he asked, the concern evident in his voice. "Better," she admitted, "less cramping." Relief washed over his features. "Dr. Mercer says the latest tests are encouraging. The bleeding has almost stopped." Isabella nodded, gathering her courage. "Jackson, we need to talk about whatever this is." She gestured between them. "You've barely left this room in 2 days. Your company can function without me for a few days," he interrupted. "I have competent people." "That's not the point," she persisted. "This goes beyond professional concern. I need to understand what's happening here." Jackson was silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the fetal monitor. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough with emotion. "When I saw the blood on your dress, it was like losing Catherine and the baby all over again. But this time—" He looked up, meeting her gaze directly. "This time it was worse, because it wasn't just about the past. It was about you, about your baby. About losing a future I didn't even realize I wanted until that moment." The confession hung in the air between them, too significant to be easily absorbed. Before Isabella could formulate a response, the door opened and Dr. Mercer entered, accompanied by a tall, distinguished-looking man in an expensive suit. "Ms. Parker," Dr. Mercer began, "your test results are showing improvement, but I've asked Dr. Harrison to consult on your case. He's one of our top specialists in high-risk pregnancies." Dr. Harrison stepped forward with a practiced smile. "Ms. Parker, Mr. Bennett, I've reviewed your file and would like to discuss treatment options moving forward." There was something oddly familiar about Dr. Harrison's face, though Isabella was certain they'd never met. She glanced at Jackson and was surprised to see him staring at the doctor with a strange expression, something between shock and suspicion. "Harrison," Jackson said slowly. "Any relation to Thomas Harrison of Harrison Pharmaceuticals?" The doctor's smile never wavered. "My father, and you must be Jackson Bennett. Your reputation precedes you." An uncomfortable tension filled the room as the two men regarded each other. Isabella looked between them, confused by the sudden chill in the atmosphere. "I wasn't aware that Harrison Pharmaceuticals had physicians on staff," Jackson said, his tone deceptively casual. "We don't," Dr. Harrison replied smoothly. "My medical career is separate from the family business, though I do consult occasionally. Small world, isn't it?" The conversation that followed was strictly medical, with Dr. Harrison outlining a treatment plan involving bed rest, medication, and close monitoring. Throughout the discussion, Jackson remained unusually quiet, though his eyes never left the doctor. After both physicians departed, Isabella turned to Jackson. "What was that about?" "You looked like you'd seen a ghost." Jackson's expression was grim. "Harrison Pharmaceuticals is one of Horizon's main competitors. We've been in negotiations for months over a potential partnership to develop a new prenatal supplement line. Thomas Harrison walked away from the deal last week without explanation, and now his son is my doctor." Isabella frowned. "That seems coincidental." "I don't believe in coincidences," Jackson said flatly. He pulled out his phone and began typing rapidly. "I need to make some calls. Will you be okay for a few minutes?" Isabella nodded, her mind racing with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Why would a competitor's son suddenly take an interest in her case? Was it truly just professional courtesy, or was something more sinister at play? Jackson returned 45 minutes later, his expression thunderous. Without preamble, he sat beside Isabella's bed and took her hand. "I need to tell you something. "And I need you to stay calm," he began, his voice low and urgent. "Harrison Pharmaceuticals has been developing a prenatal vitamin supplement similar to what I've been giving you, the ones my cousin supposedly created." Isabella felt a chill run down her spine. "What are you saying?" "The formulation I've been providing you isn't FDA approved yet. It's been through preliminary testing and was deemed safe, but—" He hesitated, clearly struggling with his next words. "There have been 3 cases of placental complications in women taking the supplement. All 3 experienced symptoms similar to yours." The room seemed to tilt around her. "You gave me experimental vitamins without telling me." "They weren't experimental," Jackson insisted, though guilt was evident in his eyes. "They were in the final stages of approval. My cousin assured me they were safe, safer than what was commercially available. I wanted the best for you and the baby." Isabella pulled her hand away, anger rising through her fear. "You had no right to make that decision for me. No right at all." "I know," he admitted. "I should have told you. But I was so focused on helping that I didn't think about the ethics of it. I'm sorry, Isabella. More sorry than I can say." "Sorry doesn't fix this," she said, gesturing to the hospital room around them. "My baby's life is at risk because you decided to play God with our health." The use of "our" wasn't lost on either of them. This was her child, not his, despite whatever feelings might have developed between them. Jackson looked stricken. "The connection hasn't been conclusively proven yet. Dr. Harrison knows about it, though. That's why he's here. To gather more data for his father's company, they're trying to discredit Horizon's formula before we can bring it to market." "So my medical crisis is just corporate espionage to you?" Isabella's voice rose, causing her heart rate monitor to beep in protest. "No!" Jackson moved to the edge of his seat, his eyes pleading. "That's not what I meant. Your well-being, both of you, is all that matters to me. But you need to know that Harrison might not have your best interests at heart." Before Isabella could respond, the door opened again to reveal Dr. Harrison, who paused at the obvious tension in the room. "Everything all right in here?" "Actually, no," Isabella said, making a split-second decision. "I'd like a different specialist assigned to my case, please." Dr. Harrison's professionally concerned expression slipped for just a moment, revealing something harder beneath. "Of course, if that's what you prefer, may I ask why?" "I believe there's a conflict of interest," she said firmly, "one that puts my baby's health at risk." As Dr. Harrison departed, clearly displeased, Isabella turned back to Jackson, her emotions a tumultuous mix of fear, anger, and confusion. "I want the full truth," she demanded. "Everything about these vitamins, about your company's involvement, about why you've really taken such an interest in me and my baby. No more half-truths or convenient omissions." Jackson nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of the moment. "You'll have it, all of it. But first, I need to make sure you and the baby are safe. Harrison isn't going to take this lying down, and his father has connections throughout this hospital." The realization that she might be caught in the crossfire of corporate warfare while fighting for her baby's life hit Isabella with terrifying clarity. What had begun as a simple social media mistake had somehow spiraled into something far more complicated and dangerous. A web of personal feelings, corporate rivalries, and medical uncertainty, with her unborn child at the center of it all. Jackson reached for her hand again, and this time she didn't pull away. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, though whether as adversaries or allies remained to be seen. 3 days after Dr. Harrison's abrupt dismissal, Isabella was moved to a private wing of the hospital, courtesy of Jackson's considerable influence. The bleeding had stopped completely, and while she was still on bed rest, the immediate danger to her baby had passed. What remained was a tangled web of emotions and revelations that couldn't be as easily resolved as her medical condition. True to his word, Jackson had told her everything. The prenatal vitamin formula had been developed by Horizon's pharmaceutical division, not by his cousin as he'd initially claimed. The formulation contained a proprietary blend of nutrients that early studies suggested could reduce birth defects and promote fetal brain development. However, recent data had indicated a possible link to placental issues in a small percentage of users. "Why did you lie about where they came from?" Isabella had asked, still trying to process the magnitude of his deception. Jackson's answer had been simple and devastating in its honesty. "Because I was falling in love with you, and I wanted to help without making it seem like a corporate decision." Those words, falling in love, had hung between them since, acknowledged but unaddressed, as Isabella focused on her recovery and the safety of her child. Jackson had respected her need for space, though he still visited daily, keeping her updated on the developing situation with Harrison Pharmaceuticals. On the 4th day of her hospitalization, Jackson arrived looking more like his usual polished self, the exhaustion of the previous days hidden beneath crisp attire and his CEO demeanor. He carried a thick folder and wore an expression that Isabella had come to recognize as his business victory face. "The board met this morning," he announced without preamble. "We're recalling the supplement and halting all production until further testing can be completed." He placed the folder on her bedside table. "This contains everything: research data, development history, and testing results. Complete transparency, as promised." Isabella eyed the folder but didn't reach for it. "What about Harrison?" "That's the interesting part," Jackson said, taking his usual seat beside her bed. "Thomas Harrison came to see me personally yesterday. Apparently, his son wasn't supposed to be anywhere near your case. When Thomas found out what was happening, he was concerned." "Concerned about ethics?" Isabella asked skeptically. "Concerned about lawsuits," Jackson corrected with a grim smile. "Harrison Pharmaceuticals has been developing a similar formula. They've had placental complications in their test group as well, but at a higher rate than ours, Doctor. Harrison was trying to gather evidence to suggest the problem was with our formula, not theirs." Isabella placed a protective hand over her belly, feeling a flutter of movement beneath her palm. "So my baby and I were just pawns in a corporate chess game?" "Yes," Jackson admitted, not attempting to soften the truth. "But that ends today. Thomas Harrison and I have reached an agreement. Both companies will pool our research and work together to identify the component causing the complications. No products will go to market until we're absolutely certain they're safe." It was a reasonable, responsible solution, but it did little to address the personal breach of trust. Jackson seemed to understand this as he leaned forward, his expression softening. "Isabella, what I did was inexcusable. I put you and your baby at risk because I thought I knew better, because I was arrogant enough to believe that my resources and influence gave me the right to make decisions for you." He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of vulnerability from the usually composed CEO. "I've spent the past 5 years hiding behind corporate policies and professional distance, never letting anyone close enough to matter. Then you posted that ultrasound and something changed." Isabella studied him, seeing beyond the powerful executive to the flawed, complicated man beneath. "You still should have told me about the vitamins." "Yes, I should have. And about Catherine. And about my own conflicted feelings." He met her gaze directly. "I've made a lot of mistakes, Isabella, but caring about you and your baby isn't one of them." Before she could respond, a nurse entered with a tablet in hand. "Good news, Ms. Parker. Your latest results look excellent. Dr. Mercer says you can go home tomorrow, provided you continue bed rest for the next week." The announcement should have brought pure relief, but instead, Isabella felt a new anxiety take hold. Going home meant returning to her small apartment, to isolation and independence, and away from Jackson's constant presence. Despite everything, she had grown accustomed to his company, to their conversations that stretched late into the night, covering everything from childhood memories to future hopes. After the nurse departed, an awkward silence fell between them. Jackson was the first to break it. "I've taken the liberty of arranging for a home healthcare aide to assist you during your bed rest," he said, his tone carefully professional. "Unless you have someone else who can stay with you." Isabella shook her head. Natalie had offered, but with her demanding job at a law firm, it wasn't practical. "Thank you. That's thoughtful." "It's the least I can do," Jackson replied, rising from his chair. "I should let you rest. I'll check in tomorrow before your discharge." He was almost at the door when Isabella called after him. "Jackson, wait." He turned back, a question in his eyes. "I'm still angry," she began, choosing her words carefully. "What you did was wrong on so many levels, but I also understand that you were trying to help in your own misguided way." She took a deep breath. "I need time to process everything, to figure out if I can trust you again." Jackson nodded, his expression grave. "I understand. Take all the time you need. My feelings won't change." The next day brought discharge papers, prescriptions, and a return to the outside world. True to his word, Jackson had arranged everything: a private car, a healthcare aide named Maria who would stay in Isabella's guest room, and a meal delivery service that would provide healthy, freshly prepared food throughout her recovery. As Isabella settled into her apartment, now equipped with several new pregnancy pillows and a state-of-the-art fetal Doppler monitor, she felt both grateful for the support and strangely bereft. Jackson had accompanied her home, ensuring she was comfortable before departing with a promise to call later. The professional distance he maintained was exactly what she had requested, yet it left an unexpected emptiness in its wake. The week of bed rest passed slowly. Maria was kind and efficient, but she wasn't much for conversation. Natalie visited when she could, bringing gossip from the office and updates on the dramatic changes happening at Horizon Innovations. "Bennett's like a man possessed," Natalie reported during one visit. "He's completely overhauled the company's family leave policies, installed a childcare center in the building, and hired 3 pregnant executives in the past 2 weeks. People are calling it the Parker effect." Isabella raised an eyebrow. "The what?" "Oh yeah, it's all anyone's talking about. How you've single-handedly transformed Horizon's corporate culture. There are rumors that Bennett's setting up some kind of foundation for single parents in your honor." The news was both flattering and unsettling. While Isabella appreciated the positive changes, she couldn't help wondering if this was Jackson's way of atoning, or perhaps his strategy for winning her back. Jackson himself maintained a respectful distance, calling daily to check on her, but never pushing for more than she was ready to give. He sent flowers once, not roses or anything romantic, but cheerful sunflowers that brightened her living room. The card read simply, "Thinking of you both, Jay." By the time Isabella was cleared to return to work, nearly a month had passed since the gala night that had changed everything. Her first day back was marked by warm welcomes and curious glances. The whispers that had once suggested favoritism now held a different quality. Speculation about the nature of her relationship with the CEO, who had transformed the company in her absence. Isabella had just settled into her office when her assistant announced that Mr. Bennett would like to see her at her earliest convenience. Taking a deep breath, she made her way to the executive floor, where Jackson's assistant waved her in immediately. Jackson stood as she entered, his eyes taking in her appearance with evident relief. "You look well," he said simply. "I feel well," she replied, taking the seat he offered. "The doctor says everything's back to normal. The baby's growing right on schedule. I'm glad to hear it." He hesitated before adding, "Isabella, I've been giving our situation a lot of thought during your absence. I understand if you still need time, but I wanted you to know where I stand." She nodded, her heart beating faster despite her resolve to remain composed. "I'm listening." "I've stepped back from direct involvement in the supplement development," he began. "I've recused myself from any decisions that might create a conflict of interest regarding you or your position here. Your career at Horizon will be based solely on your merit and performance, regardless of any personal relationship between us." Isabella appreciated the professional boundaries he was establishing, but uncertainty lingered. "And what exactly is our personal relationship, Jackson?" He met her gaze directly. "That's entirely up to you. I meant what I said in the hospital. My feelings haven't changed, but I'll respect whatever decision you make." The ball was in her court, a position Isabella hadn't expected when she'd first posted that ultrasound by mistake. So much had happened since then: danger, deception, and unexpected connections. She had entered the hospital as a single woman facing motherhood alone, and emerged with the potential for something she'd never anticipated: a partner who, despite his flaws, genuinely cared for both her and her unborn child. "I think," she said carefully, "that we should start with dinner, a real date, not a work function. No ultrasounds, no corporate rivals, no medical emergencies. Just 2 people getting to know each other better." The smile that transformed Jackson's face was like sunrise breaking through clouds, warm, genuine, and full of promise. "I'd like that very much." 6 months later, Isabella sat in a rocking chair in the nursery of Jackson's penthouse apartment, now their shared home, cradling her newborn daughter, Lily, against her chest. The journey to this moment had been neither simple nor straightforward. There had been difficult conversations, moments of lingering doubt, and the complex process of building trust after betrayal. Jackson entered quietly, his tie loosened after a long day of meetings. His expression softened as it always did when he saw them together. "How are my girls?" he asked, kneeling beside the rocking chair to press a gentle kiss to Isabella's forehead. "Sleepy," Isabella replied with a tired smile. "But perfect." He reached out to stroke Lily's tiny cheek with one finger, his touch reverent. "I filed the last paperwork today. The foundation is officially established, the Lily Parker Foundation for Single Parents." Isabella felt tears well in her eyes. The foundation had been Jackson's idea, a way to provide resources, support and community for single parents facing the challenges she had once confronted alone. What had begun as a corporate PR move had evolved into a genuine passion for both of them, a way to transform their personal journey into something that could help others. "She would be proud to know her name is helping families," Isabella said softly. Jackson's gaze moved from their daughter to Isabella's face, love evident in every feature. "I was thinking," he said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. "Maybe someday she might like to share your name with me as well." Isabella's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring, her birthstone, not a traditional diamond. It was exactly what she would have chosen for herself. "I know it's only been 10 months since that ultrasound found its way to my feed," Jackson said, his voice husky with emotion. "But they've been the most important months of my life. You've changed everything, Isabella. You've made me a better man, a better leader, and now, a father." He took her free hand in his. "I can't imagine my life without you both. Will you marry me?" As Lily shifted against her chest, making the tiny sighing sound that never failed to melt Isabella's heart, she thought about the unlikely series of events that had brought them to this moment. A simple mistake, posting an ultrasound to the wrong profile, had set in motion a chain of circumstances that had nearly cost her everything, only to give her more than she'd ever dreamed possible. "Yes," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks as Jackson slipped the ring onto her finger. "Yes, I'll marry you." Later that night, as Jackson slept beside her and Lily rested peacefully in her bassinet nearby, Isabella picked up her phone and opened the photo gallery. There it was, the ultrasound image that had started it all, the first picture of the daughter who now slept a few feet away, the catalyst for a love story she could never have predicted. With a smile, she saved the image to a special album titled "The Best Mistake I Ever Made," and set her phone aside, turning to curl into the warmth of the man who had gone from intimidating CEO to the love of her life, all because she had accidentally posted an ultrasound to the wrong profile.